Pat Mayo Experience Week 8 DraftKings picks and preview. And in case you don't know yet, I'm going to be doing a live show from Gillette Stadium this week, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the DraftKings Facebook page. It's going to be a Facebook Live. Me, Tim Undercust, are going to be live on the scene. So he's going to try to curse Tom Brady, or maybe it's going to work the other way because he hates Tom Brady, so it might propel Tom Brady to throw like 8 touchdowns. Anyway, today's show, we're talking DraftKings. You can find my cheat sheet up on DKPlaybook.com, and we're talking main slate only. No Thursday, no London game, no Sunday night game, no Monday night game, and with 6 buys, it's left us with not a whole lot of options on this 9-game slate. Joining me to break this all down from the Swolecast, it's Davis Mattek. What up, dude?
Hey, thanks for having me on for basically the worst slate yet we've had this season.
Well, I mean, I have to have my most fun guest on when we have, crap games to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll find something to debate on. You'll probably like someone terrible. I'll definitely recommend someone terrible. So this will definitely be a good one.
I mean, it's going to happen one way. You're going to recommend someone terrible. I'll fight you on it. I'll be right, and then it'll be vice versa. Unlike last week when Siege was on, it was just giving out bad plays all over the place.
Was Siege on Chris Ivory?
I was on Chris Ivory on Sunday morning.
I called Chris Ivory like a mega superstar, I could not have been more effusive in my praise of Chris Ivory last week on the Friday Swolecast show. I was just like, you got to get him in. You have to play him. 100% exposure every lineup. And I felt so sharp after he scored that touchdown. I was like, oh, boys, huge day coming. TJ Yeldon, just mega smash. TJ Yeldon, like 28 DraftKings points, just like insane.
Did anyone even play TJ Yeldon?
I know one of my idiot followers on Twitter, I tweeted me, he's like, oh yeah, you liked Chris Ivory? Look at this. And he sent me a screenshot with TJ Yeldon in it. And I'm sure he had it in the quarter arcade or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Ivory, nothing set up. Like, isn't this what we wait for? Some running back to be injured, declared out last second, then move to the super cheap guy that's going to get all the volume. Like, that's a play you do 100% of the time.
Yeah, I play that guy 100% of the time. I play that guy in 100% of lineups. Like, no regrets, but it's not going to be a take that people react favorably to.
Yeah, well, sometimes everything sets up perfectly and it doesn't work out. This is what happens. Anyway, what was your initial thoughts on the pricing this week? Like, is there one position where you think you have to pay up at, or is there a position you can pay down, do you think?
I mean, with Antonio Brown not on the slate and Julio Jones continuing to be basically the 5th option in Atlanta, I think most people are going to take mid-tier wide receivers. Like, a lot of the 6K, lower 7K guys are pretty attractive. And there is perhaps I know for a fact there's a cheap running back who will be pretty much ultra chalk.
All right, well, let's get into the running backs then, and hit me up. Who is the cheap running back? Maybe I'll try to guess who the cheap...
You'll be able to get it.
All right, the ones that I have listed here, the below $5,000 running backs that I had highlighted to talk about were Smallwood, Mixon, Richard, Forte, and Rob Kelly at $4,100. Is it one of them?
Yeah, Mixon. Mixon will be 30% owned if nothing else changes in the discourse about him yet this week, and he could pump to 50-ish. That's pretty high, but he could pump there if the coaching staff says anything about wanting to get him involved, and if everyone continues to tout him super hard, because people are touting Dalton really hard and people are touting AJ Green pretty hard, and it would just seem to follow that people are just on the Bengals in general against the Colts.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Chalk Mixon. I mean, he's still in a three-way timeshare, and we saw what happened last week. He was playing well. The Bengals looked good when they were utilizing Mixon. Then all of a sudden they were just like, screw this. We're not going to use Mixon anymore. And Marvin Lewis is a moron, so you have to kind of factor that in, don't you?
He's probably an elite tournament fade. If you're just trying to win $1 million, if you're trying to come in first place, he's probably just taking him on 0% of your teams would be the intelligent way to go. Obviously he could smash, but I think he's more of a cash play than $1 million play.
Well, what about those 3 other guys I mentioned below him? Richard, Forte, Kelly. I'll even check in DeAndre Washington into that mix too. Does anyone there kind of pique your fancy?
Yeah, Richard is the one that I like the most for tournaments. I actually think Washington will get more total touches, but I think it's just clear that Richard is the more he's just the better player. We saw how many 50-yard touchdowns did he have last year? 3 separate super long ones.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I wrote up in my waiver wire column this week. Just basically, if you're looking, if it's one of these things where the guys are probably going to play close to an equal amount of touches, and I mean, the Raiders are underdogs in this game at Buffalo, so you'd expect Richard to be on the field when they're passing, Washington to kind of man it between the tackles and maybe get some goal line work over Richard, but, Alawale could come in and steal the touchdowns anyway. It's not like Richard's going to be devoid of value, even if they get down there. Let's say they have to pass on a third down from like the 9-yard line. Richard's probably going to be the one in the game, and he's the big play guy. Like, if this is going to be the punt that you take at $4,300, at least give yourself the guy who can score 12 points on one play.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm not crazy about any of these guys. I think I can tell myself the best story about Mixon simply because the Colts are so horrendous. Smallwood, though, pretty interesting just because I think like the Eagles, they're going to score the most points this week. Like it's going to be an absolute smash. Like I want all sorts of Eagles in all formats.
Well, it's going to be tough to fit them all in, but like, would you go Blunt at 51 or Smallwood at 49? I would go with Smallwood at 49. Like, people just talk about how Blunt's going to, every time they get on the 1 yard line, Blunt's going to come in the game. That could be true, but he has been abysmal near the goal line this season.
I mean, do you have access to any like projected ownerships or anything like that? I haven't even looked yet.
I don't. The only thing that I have is I'll look up FanShare right now. And
I bet Blunt has way more tags than Smallwood does. I bet Smallwood is like not trendy at all.
I mean, but at least Smallwood's gonna have a floor through the receiving game.
Yeah, I like Smallwood more because I assume that he has relatively similar projected points just because Blunt 0 catches but more touchdown upside. Smallwood not as much touchdown upside but definitely like 2 to 4 receptions probably. And I would take Smallwood because he also is more likely to turn a play on the 44 into a touchdown than Blunt is.
Yeah, well, right now, I mean, it's very early in the week. We're filming this at 4:30 on a Wednesday, but Blunt is 5th in start tags right now.
Yeah, and I mean, that's obvious. I don't think anyone would, this is basically the best spot to take a running back in the league, other than Indianapolis.
And Smallwood's not inside the top 10 right now. But let's go to the top and see if we can find some running backs who are just locks for your lineup. Zeke is number 1. He's $9,200. Shady's 87. Melvin Gordon's 81. Ingram 74. Freeman, Howard, McCaffrey, Hyde. Now we're into the $6,000 area. Then it's like Kamara, Chris Thompson, those guys. What do you make of Carlos Hyde in this spot? He's cheap. He gets the volume. The matchup sucks. But he can be used in the receiving game. If they do venture into the red zone and near the goal line, he's going to be the one in there, and he's been pretty good near the goal line so far this season. And if Philly does get up by a ton, well, it might take away from his bottom line in terms of carries. He's probably going to get more receptions. If they get in close, they'll probably still run it anyway, and then the Eagles probably don't even care on defense by that point when they're up by 40.
I mean, it's a great theory. You have a good narrative. You have a good story that you've told yourself, but I really think San Francisco gets boat raced. Is Beathard beat hard? What is he starting again this week? Have they said if it's him or Hoyer?
I just assumed it was Beathard, but
yeah, that dude, he averaged 6.7 yards per attempt in the Big Ten. He's really not good. That offense is going to look bad, be bad. Hyde's ceiling is lower, his floor is lower. This is a disaster for Hyde, I think.
All right, so would you pay up for any of these running backs? Because, I mean, Elliott's in a good spot, although Washington's defense is all right. Shady's just going to get all the volume. But I think Melvin Gordon, coming off a week where he just scorned everyone at $7,000, he's now up in price by $1,100. But he has a glorious matchup against the Patriots.
I love Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon has just been a guy I've railed on all year long, pretty much every week, except for, I think, week 4. I was on him as a cash game guy and had a lot of exposure in tournaments. The Patriots definitely a good matchup in terms of their defense is bad, and if they get down a lot, obviously Gordon is more involved in the receiving game. But you know who the best expensive running back play is?
Who?
Your absolute favorite player.
No.
He is. He should be 8,500. He should cost the same as Shady.
You use
Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram should be as expensive as Shady.
You're gonna end up with those you're gonna click on your contest at some point during the week. If that's gonna be the case, and you're just pumping Ingram, you're gonna click on current winnings. It's gonna give you minus 0.1 cent.
I'm telling you, dude, he has never had less competition in his career. Not even just in the backfield, but they are spreading the ball around. Their receivers less. They're running more than they ever have in the time there. He actually is has more of a receiving target share than guys like Melvin Gordon and Todd Gurley. Like, it's not a joke. Like, he's the number one option. He accounted for 35% of their offensive plays last week.
I don't know. I still feel more comfortable with Alvin Kamara at a much cheaper price.
Nah, not a chance. Not a chance that I would take Kamara instead.
All right, is there anyone else in that $5,000 area that you like? Because I am big on Chris Thompson at $2,000 or $5,700 or $5,800.
I mean, like, Thompson is just like never ever cash playable. Like, you just can't for that price. But like, I think we've reached a point of diminishing returns with him, though. Like, I think his price tag now makes it so that even like his good games are not really exceeding. Like, you're not really getting GPP value out of him now because he's so expensive.
I don't know. He scored at least 17 DraftKings points in 3 of his past 4 games. 17, 20, and 33. And before that, it was 25 and 15. Like, he had the one game against Kansas City where he was abysmal. Other than that, he's returned value every single time.
And he is not 3-timesing his salary anymore.
Well, he is 3-timesing his salary. He's 3 times this salary right now in every game except 2. And
only if you don't include you have to include the decimal.
Okay, so 17.4 doesn't get there.
I mean, I will do the math.
I feel like that's really close. It could be like 17.6 would be the value.
I will tell you in a second. He just gets there. But like, still though, 3x for 5,800, like, that's not. Like, you're looking for the most total points in tournaments. Like, I like Chris Thompson. I have him on like a lot of my seasonal teams, but like, I no longer think that he's like, you're running on the good side of EV to be playing him for this price.
I just feel like in this game where Dallas can score points, that we're just going to see a lot of Chris Thompson on the field. Like, I like Cousins, I like Chris Thompson, and I don't know who else really to trust in that passing game.
If you want to do like the game stack, like the Kirk Cousins, Chris Thompson, Jordan Reed stack or whatever, yes, like I'm all on board on that game being a shootout. But as like a standalone like fill-in play, not so much.
Okay, well, if we're gonna talk about guys that can return value, James White, weirdly enough, has at least 8.5 points in each of his last 4 games, and at least 13 in 3 of his past 4. Like, his floor is kind of getting baked in right now, and the way that I envision this game going is massive pass rush at Brady. He's going to have to be moved off the spot or get the ball out very quickly. I would expect to see more James White on the field than normal. Like, I would almost kind of think about it like the Super Bowl last year. Like, when Vic Beasley was healthy for the Falcons and they were just getting to Brady, he had to get it out quickly. So that meant a lot of Edelman. That meant a lot of James White. This week I can see a lot of James White and a lot of Danny Amendola just getting peppered with targets over and over. Like, I don't think that 4,900's a lot for James White based on the potential downside, but I can see this being a game where there is potential upside for him to be had here.
I mean, he's basically just like a Patriots slot wide receiver who gets like 2-3 carries a game. Like, I don't see how he can be a bad play for that price. I'm absolutely with you on James White, and I think people will be kind of spooked off by Dion Lewis, but like, Dion Lewis is not playing as a receiver at all right now. Like, he's just being like. This is a situation we have not seen with Patriots running backs in the past, where they have converted like the Kevin Falk role into like the grinder role. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and just the way that I kind of see it, teams with a good pass rush tend to make Brady get the ball out quickly. And the last time they kind of faced one of these teams was the New Orleans game, because the New Orleans pass rush has been really good. And James White dominated in that game. I just see more of that kind of script happening this time around. So I'm going to be on James White. The last guy I want to talk about was Devonta Freeman at $7,200. It just seems like people are in a malaise with the Falcons right now. Like, everyone just keeps turning to Julio Jones every single week thinking, hey, this is going to be the week for Julio. But I can see this being more of a Freeman week. Like, you can run the ball down the throats of the Jets, and why not? Like, I don't understand why he's not getting 20 carries a game.
I mean, he is kind of like, he is the guy I would take the most from the Falcons. Like every week, Coleman is getting less snaps and less involved, and Freeman is getting more snaps and more involved. And like, Freeman looks good. His efficiency numbers has been good. He has 9 interactions inside the red zone. Like, he is like definitely a play this week. And I think people will no chance people take him in cash, and people will definitely be too low on him in tournaments.
Any love for McCaffrey against that terrible Bucs defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've basically seen he can't run, right? Like,
yeah, but you're not rostering him to run.
Right. So my point is that if you're going to be paying that much money for a Carolina Panthers weapon, I like Funchess more.
You like?
So yeah.
I mean, 9 targets last game, 14 targets the week before. Like, he's going to be right around double-digit targets. Like, we know he has, like, breakaway speed if he can get, he hasn't shown it yet, but if he can break a tackle, like, he's gone. And one of these weeks it's going to happen. I kind of want to be on him when it does.
He's kind of like Danny Woodhead, honestly.
Or
Kevin Falk, or I'm trying to think of I don't want to comp him to Danny Woodhead just because they're both white, but but Woodhead was even like a better red zone runner. McCaffrey just doesn't look like he knows how to be a running back at all.
I mean, that's true, but if they're going to use him as a receiver, then I'm basically just getting a receiver at that price who's going to get double-digit targets.
Sure, I'm not saying he's a bad play. I'm like not crazy about him though, specifically this week. Man, I don't know. Panthers could put up a lot of points. The Buccaneers suck.
Yeah, I mean, when we get to quarterbacks, I'm going to be on Cam, so we'll talk about that. Elliott or McCoy, are you going up that high, or can you go up that high, do you think?
Yeah, you can. You got to find one cheap receiver, and there are a couple eligible guys. But yeah, definitely, I go McCoy in cash just because he's the only running back who leads his team in target share.
All right, let's switch to wide receivers, and let's talk about some of those cheap guys. We'll start at the bottom this time. I like doing it this way and try to kind of have a consensus at the top, see if we can find some core guys to build around. So who are some of these cheap receivers? I'm looking at the 3 guys that I have highlighted. 2 of them I really like. One I really have no kind of idea what to expect from, so I'll get your take on that. One is Marquise Goodwin at $3,900. The second one's Josh Doxson at $3,900, then Deontay Thompson at $3,700. I don't know what to make of Josh Doxson. I saw people bragging on Twitter about how I was in on Josh Doxson. I knew. It's not like he had a great game. He was just on the field some.
I mean, yeah, I'm in on Doxson. I don't think I looked closely enough at him this week when I did my write-up. But yeah, I think the fact that he is playing more is obviously pretty encouraging. And if you look at his logs, it looks kind of gross. But that Kansas City game, he really should have a touchdown tacked on in there. He had it in his hands. He was coming down with it. And it just separated when he hit the ground. But, that's kind of a 50-50 ball. And it was the game was on the line and Cousins went to him. And, it just turns out that Pryor is dead.
Yeah. Well, I guess if everyone's big on the Bengals, Brandon LaFell was $3,700 too. So
LaFell is legit. He's like a thing.
I went through this a few weeks ago with LaFell. It did not work out. I did too. It did not work out well for me.
Yeah, I did the same thing. He was terrible. He had 1 catch. He's awful. But I don't think we can really overstate just how bad the Colts are. The Colts have allowed 31 more points than any other team in football. They've given up 4.5 more touchdowns than any other team. It's crazy how bad they've given up the second most yards per play, the most total plays against. They suck. They're really, really bad.
Okay, well, let me throw this out as a tournament game theory play here. The Bengals are not the most consistent team in the world. What about just not using any Bengals in tournaments, and that's your fade? Because they're all going to be super chalky.
Yeah, the Bengals have scored 98 points on the year. That ranks them as second worst. Only the Dolphins, led by Jay Cutler, are worse. They're terrible. They had 2 games where they didn't score at all, and they still have not been radically efficient with this new offensive coordinator. I think use Dalton, use AJ Green, whatever in cash. Do what you have to do to beat 50% of the people. If you're trying to win $1 million, I don't know if Brandon LaFell or Andy Dalton is going to be the guy who does it for you.
What do you make of Deontay Thompson? I know he only had 4 targets last week, but I kind of like what the role he is playing in the Bills' offense. He's sort of like a hybrid Sammy Watkins, Marquise Goodwin, and how Tyrod was looking for him down the field after buying time. I think he could be a huge strike guy, and Marquise Goodwin's trending to be somewhat of a chalk play this week. That's where people are going at $3,900. I think I'd be okay pivoting on to Deontay Thompson, hoping to get lucky against the Raiders. I think that's a good spot for him.
He's probably okay. He didn't come up for me at all. I'm the most anti-Tyrod guy that there is.
Why? Tyrod's all right.
People just love to be you play Tyrod in cash, and what, I don't know. He's just annoying to me. Get your 16 fantasy points and stop annoying me, please.
And that's what he does. He gets you your 16 to 18 fantasy points, and you can move on.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, I had to like sweat out Hundley last week, so like I'm mad at everyone who was smarter than me and they took Tyrod.
That seemed like you took Hundley last week in that spot over Tyrod?
I took Hundley in that spot with like out a single shred of doubt. I was just like all in, not scared. Hundley's gonna ball out, and I got so saved by that rushing touchdown.
I say through the first half you were looking okay.
Yeah, I mean, he also like I don't think he threw a pass in the first quarter, and then when they were trailing, it got ugly. It got really ugly.
All right, let's get to the top of the receivers then. AJ Green's number one, he's $8,600. Then it's Julio Jones, Mike Evans, Des Bryant, Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, Keenan Allen, Doug Baldwin. Brandon Cooks is at 68 and Alshon Jeffrey is at 67. I feel like people are going to smash the Bengals, smash the Eagles, and that's where everyone's going to go here. But right now, Aguilar has more tags than Alshon Jeffrey does. People might get too cute for their own good and play Aguilar at like 5,500, which seems, listen, I know Aguilar's in a great spot and he's been really good. It seems kind of pricey for Nelson Aguilar, and if people are going to go off Jeffrey, this could be a good spot to use him.
I mean, I think it's a good spot for both of them. Quarterbacks, this is from Scott Barrett from Pro Football Focus. Quarterbacks targeting slot wide receivers versus San Francisco. 37 targets, 26 completions, 390 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions for a 142 passer rating. That's why I'm on Aguilar. I think that his target volume is okay. I think that their target volume will be increased relative to normal because San Francisco plays so fast and they give the ball up so often. And San Francisco sucks specifically against slot guys. And I think Aguilar's floor is like 3 for 40, and he's got upside for like, a smash game.
I guess the one thing that I would kind of put on that is San Francisco has been really good against tight ends so far this season, and it's not because they cover tight ends particularly well. It's just they don't play a lot of good tight ends. What if everything you're projecting onto Aguilar is just all goes to Zach Ertz?
I mean, I think it's possible. I think that it is possible for Wentz to have a good day, for Ertz to have a good day, for Aguilar to have a good day, and for Alshon to have a good day. Probably not a touchdown to each of them, but I think that like it's in the realm of possibility for like a Wentz, Aguilar, Ertz team to be like amazing.
Okay, so out of all of the top end receivers, like I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to come in undervalued and underowned because he's playing Seattle, and frankly, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but it's an interesting situation to see if volume can pan out over matchup in that spot. But like I like Mike Evans against Carolina. I like AJ Green, obviously, he's in a great spot. I don't love Des Bryant as much or Michael Thomas, but like Keenan Allen coming off, again, the Chargers skill position players had bad weeks, fantasy-wise, except for Rivers. Last week. So I think that getting onto the Chargers, I think Chargers stack might kind of be my favorite move here this week.
I don't know about a Chargers stack, but like Allen is like a great cash play, and I think that he'll be kind of ignored. The thing about Keenan Allen is like this dude like is just like allergic to scoring touchdowns. Like he is just absolutely so bad at turning targets into touchdowns, even with red zone work. Like he can't do it. So like I don't know how good of a tournament play he can be.
All right. Amari Cooper is now, once again, more expensive than Michael Crabtree. So, as this tends to go, just play Michael Crabtree?
Play Crabtree.
Play Crabtree, yeah.
100%. Yep.
People want to be on Cooper, though. I mean, he might put up 200 yards again.
Yeah. I don't know. Not in on Cooper. Not a chance.
Is there anyone else in this range? Like, does Garcon in that are you just staying away from all Niners? Even though you mentioned if they do turn the ball over a lot, they play a high pace. They're going to be down in this game. They're going to be throwing. Would you go to Pierre Garcon, or is Goodwin the better play?
Hogan is the guy I like in this range.
Hollywood Hogan. See, I like Danny Amendola the best of the. I know the touchdown potential for Chris Hogan is higher. It just the way that the Chargers are constructed. The guys over the middle, the slot guys, the guys that run these short A-dot routes tend to kill the Chargers. And that's just where I see Amendola.
So the thing is that Chris Hogan is actually a phenomenal football player.
Yeah,
and Danny Amendola just does his job. And I'm not playing either one of them in cash, so I would like to look at the guy who has like 28-point upside. That's 100% Hogan. That's Amendola is getting 28 points if he gets 15 catches. That's the scenario that he gets that. Like, Amendola is not having, like, I think Amendola has something crazy. Like, he's played in the NFL for like 9 years and has 6 touchdowns or something crazy like that. I need to look it up now.
You look that up, and there's only other receiver that I was really thinking about playing was Jermaine Kearse at $4,800.
He scores a touchdown every week.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
He's basically the new Eric Decker.
Like, I don't know. People might think I'm being sarcastic, but I 100% believe that. Like, yeah.
Oh, I mean, you and I talked basically every single week on the show last year about or was it 2 years ago? Just play Eric Decker every week. He gets like 5 for 75 and a touchdown.
So it sucks that's no longer true. Haven't been able to play him once this year.
No, I mean, everyone was on him last week, and then people were like, oh, it was a great process. You just use Eric Decker again. I don't know about that.
Was not great process.
Well, the guy's inconsistent. At least Jermaine Kearse is consistent.
I mean, Jermaine Kearse's target volume is like pretty low, though.
Yeah, but he catches everything that comes his way.
Yeah, I actually think when we get to quarterbacks, we'll talk about it. I think McCown is like a good pivot from Andy Dalton chalk.
Do you have any faith in any of the Saints receivers?
Well, Michael Thomas didn't practice today.
Really? I didn't see that.
Yeah, so we might have ourselves like a Brandon Coleman situation.
What's Coleman at?
I think he's like 3,900.
Yeah,
3,500.
3,500. Is Snead playing? Do we know?
Yeah. See, I will look at that. And this is part of the problem with doing the shows on Wednesdays. We don't know. But yeah, Snead was inactive last week, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe we have Ted Ginn week. Like that's literally the best thing that could ever happen to you is the return of Ted Ginn as like a fantasy viable option.
Yeah, but now everyone's on him all the time. I used him last week, and it was fantastic. Now everyone wants to use Ted Ginn.
I don't know what to tell you, mate. Danny Amendola, by the way, has played 102 career games. He has 18 touchdowns in that time span.
Now, in fairness, of 102 career games, he's probably been injured midway through like 75 of them.
570 targets into 18 touchdowns. That's so bad. That's crazy. Like he legitimately, I would have to look this up, but he may have the NFL record for like most touches, like worst touches to touchdown ratio of any wide receiver.
I think he gets double-digit targets in this game, and if he's going to be that price, listen. I might use him in cash if I have to.
And by the way, Keenan Allen, not quite that bad, but he's played the NFL this is his 5th season, and he only has 16 touchdowns.
Well, I mean, I think he's top 10 in red zone targets this year too.
17. He is.
Which is just mind-boggling.
I mean, it's something he can't do. I don't know why. I'm not gonna sit here and break down the X's and O's because, I mean, who cares? But yeah, like he's just not that guy. They have Melvin Gordon and Hunter Henry to do that.
Okay, quarterbacks. Top price quarterback is Tom Brady. He's followed by Dak, Wentz, and Breeze. That's your $7,000 area. Then it drops into Ryan, Cam, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Kirk Cousins, Phillip Rivers. There's a lot of low $6,000 quarterbacks this week. In my weekly rankings for season long, I have Wentz as number 1. I have Cousins at number 2. So I think that Wentz at $7,200 is a great value. Even if he's going to be super chalky, I think you could probably use Carson Wentz kind of risk-free because he's really good. But I love Cousins at $6,400.
I mean, Wentz is the best play. Cousins is my favorite tournament play. And Andy Dalton is the cheap guy that you're using in cash if you decide that you want to use McCoy.
Like, I think Rivers is a better option than Dalton. He's $500 more.
I mean, I think that $500 matters when you are taking the expensive running back. And if you don't have an expensive running back, you're not looking in this range at all.
I don't know. I feel like I could save myself.
Also, old man Phil Rivers. I mean,
this is the perfect spot for old man Phil Rivers.
I can't do it with him because the perfect spot for Phil Rivers turns into the 5 interception game too often.
I mean, that's somewhat true, but I mean, it doesn't for Andy Dalton.
Listen, I'm not excited about playing Andy Dalton. I just think that the argument is that he's $500. And in like the new environment of DraftKings where the prices are actually like tight, like this did not used to be the case with DraftKings. DraftKings used to have a much looser, much less restrictive cap, and that's just not the way that it is now.
All right, well, let's talk about a few potential tournament plays. I really like Kirk Cousins, just like you. I really like Cam going up against the Buccaneers, and everyone hates Cam again. So, Cam sucks, can't play Cam. I can kind of completely disagree. $6,600.
He's good. He's good against bad defenses.
Yeah, this is a bad defense. The other guy that I gave some consideration to, just because the narrative around him is not going to be very good, but Deshaun Watson scores fantasy points, man. He's only $6,400.
Well, he just the best thing you can say about him, especially against this defense, is he embraces the volatility. Like he is not going to be afraid to like test Richard Sherman if like he doesn't care. He's just getting the ball up, and like Richard Sherman's not going to win 100% of the time. No one does. Like yeah, he's going to get sacked. Yeah, he might lose some fumbles, but like yeah, he does. He does just score fantasy points. And if you ever wanted, like, I believe he has the most fantasy points per game of any quarterback right now. I'd have to check that.
24.2 is the most of any quarterback.
Yeah, so you get the guy who averages the most DraftKings fantasy points per game as like the 12th most expensive quarterback or whatever. I don't actually know. I have your beautiful face pulled up instead of the DK screen, and you get him at like maybe 5%, maybe.
I think that's a chance you have to take. Like it's not like, again, like if you were thinking about Andy Dalton and you can move down at, let's say, receiver, use a bit more volatile receiver. I mean, this is going to be a volatile lineup anyway in a tournament if you're using Deshaun Watson in a bad matchup, but I would go out of my way to try to play him in some spots.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
And even on the other side, like Russell, with no running game for the Seahawks, like Russell Wilson's putting up touchdowns.
I actually think he might even be a sharper tournament play than Watson, just because I feel like people just forget that Russell Wilson like can just go out and do crazy stuff and score 28 fantasy points.
Well, there's this sort of narrative around Russell Wilson this year that he's been terrible, but he's averaging over 22 DK points per week.
Yeah, he's been good. He works with the bad offensive line. 100% on board with that as a tournament play.
So if you're gonna pay up, clearly Wentz is the guy. Like you're not,
and I would not worry about the ownership in tournaments either. Just play him
because there's so much upside.
100%, yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, people are talking up Dak too, and Dak's even more expensive. Like I don't know if I'd want to pay up for Dak though. I think I would just feel more comfortable with Wentz if I was paying up.
No, I mean Dak just scores like 30 fantasy points a week. I think he's great too. I would just prefer Wentz. I prefer Wentz. Wentz actually has the most air yards thrown of any quarterback, more than Watson even.
Well, I can see that. I mean, a lot of these touchdowns, like these deep ones, like I mean, Aguilar has what, like 4 like deep touchdowns. Torrey Smith has 2.
But Aguilar's not. Alshon is the one that leads them in air yards, which is crazy.
Really?
Yeah, you wouldn't think that, but he does. I think he's has the 3rd most in the NFL.
Is there any pay down quarterback? Like, do you just gamble with Brissett, $4,900 if you want to save all the money?
No.
Mitch Trubisky at 4,600.
Mitch Trubisky is going to throw like 5 passes this week.
That might not be an option for him this week.
Do you think that John Fox will even do that?
I don't know. Probably not, right?
Yeah, that just does. That's not possible.
All right, so Wentz, if you're gonna pay up, that Cam Newton, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Kirk Cousins kind of tier. I like Rivers and cash if you can do it. I don't even mind Cousins and cash if you're paying down. Like I know Andy Dalton is in the best spot. I know that he's popular. Everything sets up for him. Just I don't want to trust Andy Dalton.
Yeah, and I don't blame you for that at all.
And if I can afford the other guys, maybe this will end up being the case that I have to pay down because it's all I can afford. But if I don't have to, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
All right, let's talk tight ends because the 1, 2, and 3 highest priced tight ends all kind of draw not great matchups, at least in terms of how they've been covered by tight ends so far this season. Gronk has the 2nd worst matchup of the week against the Chargers. Ertz has the 3rd against the Niners, and Austin Seferian-Jenkins at 4,900. There's a substantial gap between 71 and 7,000 Gronk and Ertz, and then all the way down to Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Like, I think Ertz is an absolute smash in the spot of all the Eagles' weapons besides Wentz. Ertz is clearly the guy that's going to have the highest upside, the best floor every single week, but it's a lot of money to pay for Zach Ertz, knowing where the limitations are kind of drawn with the other positions. Like, it's just a lot to pay for a tight end in general.
It is, however, I don't think it's that much when you just think about him as like a wide receiver. Think about him like a guy with a 25% target share of that offense and know that they have a 30 team total and know how good Wentz is, and I think it becomes a lot more palatable.
All right, well, I guess that makes sense. If you compare $7,000 Ertz to the receivers around that same range, like Hopkins, Allen, Baldwin, and Cooks, I guess I would play Ertz probably over all those guys. So, yeah, maybe you're right.
Yeah, like I think he just becomes, and I think you can even do double tight end this week.
A lot of people are doing double tight end a lot recently.
Yeah, it's a viable strategy because they kind of cap the tight ends. Like they just kind of don't increase them as much. Like Jack Doyle has 7, 11, and 7 targets in the last 3 weeks, and he's priced at 3,400. If a wide receiver had those sort of target numbers, they would just boost him right up.
Well, I guess the thing is, I guess to use the double tight end, then yes, you use Ertz at the price, but it seems like tight end is one of the few positions where you can actually pay down this week.
Yeah, I love Doyle.
I think Doyle's all right. I think Nick O'Leary again at $3,100 is still fine. And out of all the Bengals that we've been talking about, Tyler Kroft kind of makes a lot of sense for his price point.
Yeah, Kroft, he seems okay. He like 4 targets, 5 targets, 7 targets the last 3 weeks. He has scored, so like that's nice. I actually, you know what? Man, Kroft at 3K, that's pretty good. He might be about as good as Doyle is.
And he has more touchdown upside. Like, even when you look at the numbers when it comes with Jack Doyle, like, I don't think he has over, despite getting all the targets and those receptions, like, he's basically Ben Watson.
Yeah. And, I mean, those generally are not the sort of guys that I like to play, but, like, also if I'm going to be playing, Jack Doyle, I don't really think I can get my panties in a bunch about playing someone who is, like, not that athletic.
But Tyler Kroft at $3,000, at least he has 2 touchdown potential in this game.
Sure, that's the thing, and like they have used their offense like that for like some time. Like they have like used their tight end as a primary touchdown scorer for a while.
Some people were talking to me about Ed Dixon at $3,400, but I believe he did not practice today with an ankle injury, so people need to be very wary of that. Just kind of circle back to the Panthers receivers. You say you like Funches. What about Benjamin?
Nah.
You just don't like Benjamin?
I don't. I just think Funches is the number 1 wide receiver there. 8 targets, 9 targets, 8 targets, 9 targets. He has 3 touchdowns over the last 4 weeks. Like, not a great game against Chicago. The whole team was bad. Not a great game against Philly. Philly's really good. It happens.
The most talked up tight end this week because of the savings that you get for him, and I think it's a great matchup. I think it's a great spot. The price is right. It's Hunter Henry at $4,800. Like, that seems, again, if you want to talk about if he was a wide receiver, he'd probably be $6,700.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like he would be priced as the Chargers' second wide receiver if he was. And like at the start of the season, there was like a little bit of concern, but Gates's snap share, yards per route ran, like everything has gone down basically since the second week of the season.
All right, let me throw this last one at you. I know you hate this offense, you hate the quarterback, but everyone made George Kittle chalk last week.
No, I like George Kittle though.
I like George Kittle this week.
Get him at lower ownership.
You get him at no ownership. You think anyone's going to use George Kittle this week? They won't.
Like he's a freak athlete too. So like, yeah, that seems fine.
And he's what, $3,600? Yeah, this might be a tight end in the flex week. That seems to make a lot of sense because you can still pay.
I mean, I could see that being very profitable.
Do you always do it on primetime slates?
I mean, it would depend. It would depend on who was in said primetime slate. Like, I'm not doing it with like. I mean, I don't know. I'm doing a bad job of being a football analyst. I can't think of a terrible tight end off the top of my head. But yeah, no, I wouldn't do it if my expectation was 1 target or whatever.
I mean, that's basically Austin Hooper at this point. Either it's like 8 targets or none.
Austin Hooper could be a play this week.
I mean, yes, he could be, but I feel like Austin Hooper is one of those guys that either you play him every week or you just don't play him. It's like Ted Ginn from.
Oh, I love your. That's actually one of my favorite theories of yours. Is just like you have to be pot committed and be ready for it.
Yeah, like why try to pick it? It's like if you had played Amari Cooper, and you know that Amari Cooper, Deshaun Jackson's like this, Sammy Watkins is like this. Like if you're playing tournaments and you're trying to win tournaments. Those guys are going to have big weeks somewhere. It's the type of players that they are. But you need to be willing to eat your zero if you're going to go along with them. So why would you try to pick and choose the right matchups? You know they never come through in good matchups. They always come through in like these weird matchups. So you just play them every week if that's what you want to do. Like I don't play them, but other people do.
I guess the guy like that I would be pot committed on would be LaFell. I play him in tournaments like a lot.
Because of his red zone presence?
No, just because... The team like oddly ignores AJ Green for long stretches of games like pretty regularly, and it's like some week that's going to turn into 7 for 110 and a touchdown for LaFell.
Yeah, I mean when we used to talk about this all the time, Ted Ginn was that guy for me. I just played him every single week, and it would work.
Yeah.
I mean, that one year worked like 8 times. It was fantastic.
Yeah, you got pretty rich that one year off the Ted Ginn theory.
Yeah, I wish I could get rich again. I mean, that was by far my best year of DraftKings NFL. But
I mean, we're just waiting for another Danny Willett, mate.
oh man, they listen. Golf season's coming soon. I hit like 400 to 1 winners last year, although I didn't hit a bulk amount of winners. I hit a bunch of long shots, and that kind of saved my season. But I'm feeling a good year for golf coming up. But last few guys, this like middle 4,000 range, like, do you think people are going to be on Reed after Monday night?
Yes.
So I don't
that's just what people do.
I just don't want anything. I love Cousins this week too. I just don't want anything to do with him.
I used to be one of the biggest proponents of Jordan Reed, like when he was like a rookie and like a second year. No longer. He annoys me. I think Doxson is like the sneaky play, the way to gain access to Cousins points that I think it will be lower owned.
See, Doxson's right now inside the top 5 of being talked up this week on FanShare. I think everyone's in on Doxson.
Do you think people can pull the trigger on a guy with those game logs though?
Yeah, I think they can because of the price.
If that guy is chalky, he's like a horrible play. Like if he comes in at like 20-25%, he's like really, really bad.
I don't know if he's going to come in at 25, but he might be like 15.
15's not so bad, but like when like a really marginal player like that becomes so chalky, like it's not good.
Yeah, and I mean everyone should tune into the Friday show where I go over the projected ownerships, and we'll get a better sense the longer the week goes on. But Hodge and I talked about that with Robert Woods last week. Like, we both liked Robert Woods, but it got to the point where like Robert Woods isn't great. If he's going to be 20% owned, why would we play this guy?
Yeah, no, I'm very on board with that.
And I think the same kind of applies here to Marquise Goodwin and Josh Doxson, 2 guys getting super talked up as like the pay down guys of the week, because no one wants to pay down outside of Jalen Richard at running back.
Who do you think people are most likely to pay down for to like get expensive guys this week? Do you think it's Richard? Do you think it's one of these cheap wide receivers? Like the kind of one of the best keys to figuring out GPP roster construction is figuring out, are people going to go cheap at running back or at wide receiver, and then doing the exact opposite?
I think that people will pay down at receiver because I think that
so then spam.
Well, I just think that even though the people are talking up Richard as a potential play, that people are going to look at his game logs, look at his situation, look at the matchup, and be like, you know what, I don't trust that guy. He might not even see the field, is how some people might think. Therefore, I'm not going to pay down and play him. I'd rather pay down and take Marquise Goodwin, who has, he had 8 targets last week. He's a big play guy. Like, the story makes more sense for Marquise Goodwin. I actually happen to agree with that. I think that Richard is incredibly risky. I will still pay down for him. However, I don't think that he's going to end up being as popular as maybe people are pumping him up to be, whereas Goodwin and Doxson will be. Goodwin more than Doxson, but Doxson still to an extent because he is even cheaper. And, there's just a lot of narrative around him this week. Like, the mainstream media is talking about, Terrell Pryor not even seeing the field. Josh Doxson was drafted in the first round. He's finally healthy. They're going to put him to the test. Like, I could see him being 15%.
That's so bad. Do you just play Pryor then? Do you just really go for it and play Pryor?
I don't know. I don't know what to do with that situation, to be perfectly honest with you.
I'm gonna follow that. And I might just make some Cousins Pryor stacks and just buy when there's blood in the streets.
I think if I'm just going in that range, that I'll use LaFell or Deontay Thompson instead. I think that might be the move.
I mean, LaFell is like a fine play. So
I like Deontay Thompson. Like, I will be using him here, and I'm fully expecting 0 points.
Yeah, you go for that.
All right, defenses, before we get out of here. This has been my thing for the past 2 weeks. Been hitting some big ones. Don't feel as confident this week, people. I'm not going to lie to you.
No, me either. Defense has been, defense was like the easiest thing of all time. There was only one team to play.
The Bears.
But then, what?
Last week, it was the Bears.
No.
Yeah.
How much did the Bears cost?
$2,200.
All right, well, you're sharper than me, but I thought there was no possible way that in cash people could take someone other than the Rams.
Oh, see, Rams, Chargers, and Bears were the 3 defenses last week to use because they were all super cheap and they were all super good.
I was just like Rams, Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer's old. Carson Palmer had to fly across the ocean. They're not good anyways. The Rams are actually good. Like, this is very easy.
So, I like the Bengals defense, but they're super expensive.
Yep.
And I just don't.
Weird.
I just don't. Well, I mean, the big cross reference that I always do is look at the top 10 DVOA adjusted sack rate versus the bottom offensive lines. And before DVOA got adjusted this week, the Bengals actually fit that mold against Indianapolis. Indianapolis still has a bottom 3 offensive line, but the pass rush for the Bengals went substantially down last week, and it affected them a lot. The only team that actually qualifies for this right now is Pittsburgh, and they're not on this slate. So I think my favorite defense of the week, and I don't think that people are going to use them because people fear Tom Brady so much. I love the Chargers at $2,500.
I have the Bills in right now.
Really?
Yeah, I first of all, like my biggest rule is just play defenses at home. That's like probably the rule I try to follow the most. I don't do it like 100% of the time. And I think that Carr has given up a lot of the, let's call it pizzazz of the Raiders offense to increase his efficiency. And basically he's completing like 65% of his passes, but they're scoring way less. And the Bills defense is pretty good. And the Raiders have to travel all the way, 3 time zones they have to travel over? We call these biorhythm games. So yeah, I think the Bills are like fine here, and the Raiders should have to throw a lot. They don't have their normal starting running back. Should give them a chance at some turnovers.
And the Bills do enjoy themselves a lot of lucky turnovers.
They really do. That's like a giant Bills thing. Yeah.
Yeah, especially this season. It's all the bad breaks the Bills have been getting for the past 17 years are now coming to fruition and switching back the other day, at least through 7 weeks. Knowing the Bills, this is going to turn out horribly for them.
Yeah, I hope this ends in the most crushing way possible. Shout out Mike Leone.
Is there any other way that this could end than in the most devastating way possible?
No, never.
It's gonna it happened to them. I think it was like 10 years ago, where all they had to do was beat it was either the Packers or the Steelers. All they had to do was beat their backup squad because they had already clinched a playoff spot to make the playoffs. Couldn't do it.
Yeah,
So I envision that situation. They're gonna end up playing Jimmy Garoppolo and a bunch of Patriots backups at some point, and just it can't beat them. Too much.
But all that being said, I like their price this weekend. I also think that both the Seahawks and the Texans are kind of interesting. I think that could just be a game where there's just a lot of weirdness.
I would tend to agree. I would lean Seahawks there, though.
Yeah, for sure. I think they can get some sacks. Watson, pretty, like I said, willing to take shots, which can go both ways.
So the 3 that I had highlighted, if you can afford to use them, would you prefer Philly or Cincinnati if you had to pick between the two?
Cincinnati.
Yeah. So I have Cincinnati $3,600. The Saints $3,400. I think this could be a really interesting spot if they can get out in front in this game, and if Trubisky has to pass, that could lead to. The Saints are just bringing the heat to the quarterback, so if he actually has to drop back, he might find himself on his ass a lot. And then I really like the Chargers. I just think the Chargers are going to abuse the Patriots' offensive line. And yeah, Brady scares me on the other side of the ball. Brady could put up 30 points, but even if he puts up 30 points, I don't think that necessarily means that the Chargers' defense isn't going to score a lot of fantasy points.
I'm probably not playing the Chargers.
Play the Chargers, man. Play it. I'm telling you, play the Chargers.
I will put it in 15% of my tournament lineups.
Perfect.
I'll build some weird ones for you.
And they're $2,500. If you need to save, out of all the bottom defenses, they make the most logical sense.
Clear eyes.
Or
go against Tom Brady. Can't lose.
The only one, and I feel kind of dirty about this. The Cowboys are $2,300. They're getting. Their pass rush isn't bad, and Kirk Cousins can make mistakes, and that offensive line is beat to shit. What do you think?
They're a lot better with Sean Lee back. A lot better. Sure. Kirk Cousins is going to have to throw 45 times a game. That's also another thing. That's actually where you decide on defenses. Who's facing the most pass attempts? Them, because they'll have chances for something weird to happen. Sack fumbles, interceptions, anything like that.
All right. Can you say that again? You broke up on me a little bit.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right. Just say it again. Just keep it rolling. So they're going to be passing a lot to target them?
Yeah, so just take defenses that face a lot of pass attempts. That's about as easy as it gets.
All right. Yeah, now that you're in voice modulation mode, this is probably time to call it quits on the show. If you were there and you're not using one of the "Hello, I'm Davis" on your end, tell everyone when they can watch the Swolecast and where to find all your work.
Swolecast on Fridays on rotogrinders.com, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's free for the first 3 hours after broadcast. Check that out.
All right, so rotogrinders.com, 7 p.m. Eastern for the Swolecast. If you weren't able to hear that, because Davis be breaking up, you can follow Davis on Twitter at Davis Mattek. You can follow me at ThePME. And remember, Facebook Live, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, Sunday morning. Me and the cast are going to be on the scene at Gillette Stadium, taking your questions, breaking down the week, and frankly, having some fun. All right, I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.